everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Zach, and here we talk about overlanding gear, builds, DIY, all sorts of stuff related to modifying your vehicle. Today we're going to be talking about power banks. I've tested a few in the past, and I wanted to just show you this new one that came in. I really like it. I think it's got a lot of nice features that maybe people don't necessarily think they need, but are very nice to have if you do have them. And at the price point that this is at, plus some upcoming Black Friday deals on it, I think it's going to be a power supply you really want to consider. And if you actually notice, my workshop is slowly starting to get cleaned up. So if you're interested in how I'm starting to organize my workshop, or you want to see a workshop video, comment that down below, because I don't know if you guys really like those videos or not, but if you do, I'm happy to kind of show you around. It's starting to piece together a bit. But with that being said, thank you so much EcoFlow for working with me on this video. I want to jump in and show you the power bank, and then I'm just going to show you how I think this power bank is really quite capable, and it has a very large storage, and honestly might be like the ideal amount of power storage. It's hard to say because everyone's use case is different, but I think there's kind of like the weekender sort of charge your phone kind of battery, and then there's the larger size battery that's really nice for a lot of different conveniences. And then past that is like the people that do van life that need, really large amounts of battery because they're basically running a whole vehicle and large appliances off of it all the time. So those are kind of like the three categories that I break these into. And this one I think might be like the perfect middle tier. And then you could always expand it more if that's something that you need. So let's jump into looking at the battery, and I'll kind of explain some of the features that it has. All right, so I'm going to use a slightly different angle than normal because I just want to show some of these features. It's a pretty big power bank, and I kind of just want to show you some of the different sides, and it's hard to manhandle under the top-down camera. So if we look at it from the side here, you can see that it says EcoFlow Max. So this is the EcoFlow Max version of the EcoFlow Delta. So they have a Delta Pro, they have a Delta Max, then they have a new Delta 2. This is the Delta Max. It comes in a 1600 and a 2000 watt hour version. This is the 2000 watt hour version. Now, if we look at this side, this is like the display side. This is where the whole entire digital display is that kind of explains the battery, the state that it's in, and what kind of power you're drawing. So right now we have it on standby. And let me just make sure it's turned on here. So this is the display. And from my understanding, this left side here, it says 99 hours because it's at max. But this is the time remaining until your battery is dead. The middle is the percent of charge left on the battery. The right is the input, and then the right lower is the output in watts. These aren't broken down into like AC or DC or whatever wattage, but that's just the output and input. One thing that I think is pretty insane, and I'll show you right now, is this comes with this massive cable, and we'll show the charging ports on the back in a little bit, but this can fast charge at almost 1600 watts, which is just crazy. So your iPhone fast charger is, I believe, a 30 watt charger, and this is charging at 1600 watts, so almost 50 times the power. I completely killed the battery doing some tests, and I recharged it in about an hour and a half. It was nuts. So I've got it plugged into the wall. I'm gonna plug it into the back here and watch the charge just absolutely waterfall into this battery. It's gonna start to recognize it. We're starting to climb here. So my EB150 would charge at like 250 watts off the wall with a loud charger, and then with a fast charger that you had to pay extra money for, it would charge, I think, up to 500 watts per hour. And my EB150 is roughly a 1500 watt hour battery supply. So it's about 500 watt hours smaller than this. We're past 1000 watts now input. So it didn't get up to 1600 watts how I showed here. I think that's just because of the power outlet here in the workshop space. Okay, so then if you want to turn on any of the given outputs, all you do is you hold down this little gray button. So this is to turn on the front USB on and off. So now any of these USBs will work. If you plug something in, it's going to show a draw on it. And then this little Wi-Fi button, this is to set up Bluetooth connection, because there's actually an EcoFlow app if you want to use the app. Let's turn this off. Something else I really want to show you that I think is pretty insane is watch the output of this. So right now we're sitting at 0. I'm going to turn on the AC in the back. I'm going to plug in my jigsaw. We're going to start running the jigsaw here. Alright, so to run my jigsaw on the trail, that draws about 400. And then if you want to, let's say you have a wiring issue and you want to actually run your heat gun out on the trail, let's plug that in too. So as you can see right now, it's drawing about 1150 watts. How about both? So as you can see, the duration that the battery will last changes when I'm running things with a lot higher output. Obviously, if you're going to be running like 1500 or 2000 watts out of the battery, it's probably only going to last about an hour. But so far, you know, it will really run a high peak wattage piece of equipment. Like this right here, 1800 watts. It's pretty insane that, you know, heat guns draw a lot of power, and this battery can run them. So I was pretty impressed by that. If we spin this around the side here, these two ports are these massive ports. You can actually get expansion batteries for the Delta Max, and I'll have them linked below if you want, but you can go up to 6,000 watt hours total if you want to plug in 2 extra batteries to those 2 ports. Then if we spin this around to the back side here, we can switch between fast and slow charging depending upon what you probably prefer. And then we've got the massive plug here for the wall charger, and then we've got a reset button. It's got this nice little door to protect those plugs, and then we've got 6 AC outlets here, and then we've got 1 little DC outlet down here. Hold down the gray button to actually do this. So if we turn both those off, this is where you would like plug in one of your fridges, you know, like the New Air one I recently reviewed, or a Dometic fridge, or whatever kind of fridge you want to run. Just to give a couple specs, so when you're actually AC charging on the wall, the max input you can actually get is 1800 watts. And then with the other plug, the Anderson plug, you can get a max of 800 watts max through this plug. And then that's like using solar. And then a couple other points here, the like max device output is 3,400 watts at one time. And the AC outlets, if you got like everything plugged in, the maxed output would be 2,400 watts. And that also has a surge up to 5,000 watts. So, and these, you know, like I was saying before, they support 2 Delta Max smart batteries if you want to expand the total storage. So on paper, this has a 2016 watt hour capacity. This thing is a little bit of a beast, but it's not too crazy. From this distance over is 19.6 inches. It is 9.5 inches deep, and it is 12 inches tall, and it weighs about 48 pounds. And like I said, they do have an app, so if you want to use an app to monitor some of the analytics about your battery, you can do so. Okay, so I believe I said the wrong thing earlier. Just want to show you a couple of the cables that come with the Delta Max. So we've got this DC charging cable right here that utilizes this little orange plug. It is not an Anderson connector, but this is what this cable's for. It's like charging into your cigarette lighter port on your car. And then we've got a second one here, and this is for plugging into the solar panels. They both utilize this little plug. And then if we slide the solar panels over a second here, we can see that this is that little orange plug. So if you like take this and you plug it in, this plugs in right here, just like that. So that's what that plug is for. It's not an Anderson plug. I just wanted to be more clear about that. So this is the solar panel that they also sent me with the EcoFlow Delta Max. You can get it in a couple of different outputs or, you know, capacities to charge. This one is the 160 watt. I think you can get a 220 watt as well. And it comes in this really nice carrying case. I will say this feels a little more structural compared to the Bluetti one, but it also is a little bit thicker, so it just kind of depends on what your preference is there. So if we unzip this bag, it's just a carrying case for the solar panels. So you can pull the solar panels out of the bag if you like, and this is the solar panel. So it folds out just like this. There's no stand on the back, but these are just flat like this here. And then we've got a plug right on this side to plug into these connectors. So this cable comes with the battery, and then you use this to plug right in to this solar panel. So I guess we could undo these twisty ties, otherwise, I don't know. I demonstrated using the solar panel in one of my past power videos. I don't really think it's necessary. This is a solar panel. In shade, it's not going to be very efficient. In the sun, you might get closer to max efficiency. I think most solar panels do like 80% efficiency, and like that's considered really good. So don't expect to get a 160 watt solar panel and then just assume that it's going to work super well and you're going to get full 160 watts. I would say this one is probably going to give you a reliable 80 to 100 watts on an average day with sun. If you angle it sort of well or you put it in direct sunlight, you'll probably get higher. That's just been my experience with solar panels. You know, it just kind of depends. If you'd like me to do a test on this, I'm more than happy to show you. But overall, I actually really like the footprint of this as well, because if the solar panels are super high, it's really hard to store it next to things in the back of the 4Runner. But especially with the Molly panel shelf that I have and everything, this being lower and deeper, I really like its profile. If it gets too short and tall, kind of like the Bluetti one, you know, it doesn't store quite as well. So I do really like the design of this, but it just kind of depends on your storage system. I think the Bluetti one is just fine. I wouldn't say it's a good reason to buy one or the other. It's a nice benefit that you can just take it and, you know, it's only 17 inches tall, so it's actually very similar to the height of a fridge. So you could set this right next to your fridge, whether it's a dual zone, single zone, whatever it is. Most fridges I've seen typically range to be like 18 to 20 inches tall. So you could take this, you could slide it right next to your fridge, and it's just nice because with solar panels, you know, you don't want to bend them, you don't want them to be getting jammed or, you know, folding or anything like that. So being able to like set this next to a fridge or a cooler or a hard case would be really nice, and I think it has the profile to do so. So that's one thing that I really like about this particular design. I do wish it had feet so you could set it up at an angle, but something like this, I think, you know, especially since it's only 28 inches tall, a lot of windshields are roughly around this size. So if I had to guess, this is probably designed to just set it on your windshield. So yeah, that's basically everything about the solar panel. Don't want to beat a dead horse, but I just wanted to show you some of its features. So first we'll talk about the dual zone fridge test, and then we will talk about the heated blanket test. So let's jump into those tests. All right, so here's my first test. I just charged up this battery all the way to 100%. So 100%, no input, no output. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go onto the back side here and turn on the DC. So turn that on. We've got my dual zone fridge here. So take this, plug it in. As you can see, we've got power. So let's close these. The room temperature is roughly 68 degrees. And then let's set these. So we got 32 for the fridge. And then for the freezer, we've got -4. All right, so let's see here. With it just sitting there being completely thawed or normal room temps on the inside, if we come in here, saying we've got about 53 hours at this rate, and it's drawing 30 watts. So like I've been talking about before, this is a pretty efficient fridge I've found. At least in eco mode, it's a little bit slower, but out on the trail, it's really nice. So, all right, it's on eco mode, and as you can see, the refrigerator side is 45 right now, the freezer is 51. So let's leave this sit let's see how long it lasts. All right, checking back in. It's not really too much later, maybe, I don't know, 15, 30 minutes. And it's been bouncing around. It's now pulling like 35, 38 to like 42 watts. So it's a little bit higher. Just to do a little temperature check in though, we've reached temp in the refrigerator and the freezer is now still just cooling down. I think once it reaches temp though, it's gonna just turn off and on occasionally and it's gonna run forever. So we'll just have to see how that all pans out. All right, so we're checking in again. What I've noticed is this fridge kind of is like a boiler system or like a heater that it kind of turns on, runs for a while, probably goes past your set temps, and then turns off and then slowly warms up and it goes back and forth and back and forth. So these little temperature numbers, they kind of swing back and forth between like 27 and 35 and 27 and 35, and I've had it set at like 32. So the numbers are not quite always the same, 32 degrees and set consistently. However, I feel like the -4, -2, -5, the freezer has kept temp a little bit more accurately. For a little battery update here, we are sitting at 58%. It is roughly 8 p.m. the next day, so I started this at around 11 a.m. and now it's 8 p.m. the next day. So right now it's not drawing any power, but we're at 58% life. We will see how long this continues to last, but we've made it about a day and a half on 60% battery left, or used 40%. So it's looking pretty good that this will probably last over 3 days without any sort of charging or anything. So I'll keep you posted and we'll see how this continues to go. All right, well, it's 9 p.m. and the battery just died. So let's add up that time and see how long this thing lasted. I'll post it on the screen, and yeah, officially the freezer is turned off. So that was a good test, but yeah, sitting at 0 and fridge won't turn on now. All right, I just want to show this little test I've been running here. So if we turn on this electric blanket here, I've got it set to maximum. I don't know why I didn't show it there, but roughly it pulls about 130 watts. It's pulling about 123, 122 watts. And right now it says it's lasting about 14 hours, but I ran this for one test already and it lasted almost 19 hours, which kind of blew my mind. So if we look on the back of this heated blanket here, this is the throw version, which if we can get that in focus, it says in theory it's 130 watt draw. So that's pretty incredible in my opinion, because this essentially means you can run 130 watt blanket for almost 2 nights, or you could run it one night and then run a fridge in addition, or you could run a bigger throw blanket like for a queen or something. All those said that there was 180 draw, so that's roughly 1.5 times. I also have it on full blast. Like, you could think if you turn it down, it won't pull as much power. Doesn't really know what to think of that when I turn it down lower. I don't think it draws as much power when you have it on a lower setting, and typically I would run it on a lower setting after a little while once it's warmed up everything. Look at this guy. I don't know if your guys' dogs do this, but Otis will just back up and sit on your lap. He just loves to sit on my lap. Anyways, yeah, I think this is pretty insane. I'm not a huge nitpicker on power draw from a heated blanket, and maybe that would be more necessary with a smaller blanket, but this definitely can handle 2 nights with my current one that I typically use. Otherwise, I definitely could get a bigger blanket and it would still last more than 1 night, which is really important, because if you're going to be winter camping, you really want to have something that will last at least 1 night, if not 2. And in the case of winter camping, you don't necessarily need a fridge to be as effective because it's so cold out. So anyways, just wanted to test out a heated blanket as well so I could show you all the performance. Now, when I was thinking about this battery, some of the things that were really interesting to me were how long is this going to run a dual zone fridge, and how long will this run my heated blanket, you know, just a random heated blanket, not like going out there and trying to find the most efficient one, just picking up your random, you know, $30 to $50 heated blanket at Walmart or Target. How long is this thing going to run that?
Those are all things I wanted to think about, because essentially when you're going to go buy a new battery, it's, you know, you're first trying to figure out, is it a high quality battery? And then you try to figure out kind of what does it do and where does it fit in your use case. All of us have a slightly different use case, and I try to kind of approach it in a way that I can think about the things that are helpful for me, but also just things that are probably helpful for the average user. And I really think that this is like the perfect size battery. Some of those smaller ones, like the 1,000, 1,500 watt, they're good, but they start to approach limits as, you know, more technology comes out that people like to use for off-roading and camping. And so, you know, in the winter time where you might want to heat a blanket because you don't want to run a propane heater because of the fire hazards and the carbon monoxide hazards, or let's say you want to run a dual zone fridge because you want to have a freezer and you want to have a refrigerator so that you can keep meat frozen for, you know, a number of days before you actually cook it. Or maybe you like to bring ice cream when you go camping. You know, that's another thing to consider. Maybe you have a really large fridge, or maybe you're even considering getting one of those small air conditioning units from EcoFlow. You know, there's a lot of different use cases for these batteries, and it's kind of hard to say whether it's like the perfect size or not, but I think, you know, generally speaking, this is probably the best size you can go for. Good news for all of you is we're just approaching Black Friday, you know, coming up at the end of November. So be on the lookout, because EcoFlow's got some pretty crazy sales. Some I think have already started, but there's going to be probably some really good sales, especially on Black Friday. So, you know, watch out for those, because I think you're going to probably want to look at picking up one of these batteries. They're a really good bang for your buck, and they're really high quality product, and the build quality feels really, really nice. So that's something I also really want to appreciate. But thank you so much, EcoFlow, for working with me on this video. If any of you have any questions about the product, feel free to comment down below. I'll try and answer them. And thank you so much for watching. I will catch you all in the next video.